much. Good evening to you both. And let's begin with the summer of consultation. And it starts with the Premier's hand-picked Alberta Next Panel, a series of town hall meetings for the next few months to hear from Albertans on issues said to be driving separatist sentiments in the wake of the federal election. The government dedicating time to several strategies, including a pullout from the Canada Pension Plan, a provincial police force, and withholding social services for some immigrants to the province. The first town hall goes this evening in Red Deer. A second follows Wednesday in the Edmonton area. Duane, how different will the workings of this panel and its 10 in-person town halls need to be to avoid replicating what was done with the Kenney government's Fair Deal panel?
Well, I think there's a couple things that are already different. One is some of the issues are different. Some of them are the same, like pensions and the police force and equalization. But the issues around immigration and constitutional change, I think those are more unique. But the bigger one is that Premier Smith is chairing this. Jason Kenney handed it off to Preston Manning. But this time the Premier is there. So I'm wondering if you're going to have people showing up who don't want to talk about Alberta Next, but actually have their own issues that they want to raise face-to-face with the Premier, whether that is coal mining, whether that is book banning, whether that's Alberta Health Services. So I'm very curious to see how this is going to operate.
Jim, what are these discussions going to need to accomplish if it is that they are to quell separatist sentiments?
Well, I think the hope is that this will be another bait and switch that the government can do, where they can say to their radical fringe within the UCP that you do have an alternative. The alternative is you can complain to us and we won't really achieve anything out of it, but we're going to at least put it on the table and let you voice your concerns. And then at the end of the day, they will simply go back and say, well, in order to get elected, we have to have a more moderate approach. And this is what they've done over and over again. And I would envision that this is going to be a continuation of that approach.
Duane, given the discussions at hand, what kind of pressure do you expect to rest on the shoulders of the 15 members of the Alberta Next Panel and the role they will play in participating?
Well, the first is, I wonder if this is about quelling separatism as opposed to ramping it up. I think under Jason Kenney's Fair Deal panel, I think it was an opportunity of venting and of defraying separatist sentiments. But when you already have most likely an independence referendum in 2026, and we know there's going to be referendum questions out of this, is this about quelling or continuing to ramp up separatism? I think those are important questions. On the panelists themselves, I think the Premier supersedes everybody on this. But unlike the Fair Deal panel, which was all partisan conservatives or ideological conservatives, there are at least two nonpartisans that are important here. And that's Trevor Tombe, the economist out of the University of Calgary, and Adam Legge, head of the Alberta Business Council. So they're going to be put, I think, on the spot on some of these items, and they already have been. So I think that's going to be the more unusual feature.
Jim, the Premier met with public pushback on a number of issues during a town hall with the Agriculture Minister. That was in Okotoks, just ahead of Calgary Stampede. Should there be an expectation of more of the same as this Alberta panel meets with Albertans?
Yeah, I think there'll be some contentious stuff. As Duane says, there's going to be people who look to bring their own agendas forward and see if they can't get some traction from that aspect. I mean, it's not every day you can have an audience with the Premier. And the panel will have to actually structure that in such a way that it doesn't get off the rails. They've already framed it, though, that they have things in mind. They can see by the very fact of the 6 topics that they've focused in on. And if you go to their website and you do the survey, it's very much a predetermined structure that they've got. They want to get the answers, and they keep asking the questions. They figure if they ask them long enough, they may get the responses that they want from Albertans at large, or even some of the more unique groups that are looking for independence.
All right. Well, the Premier's panel is rolling into action. The Nenshi New Democrats have announced a consultation initiative of their own.
So this summer, we're putting Danielle Smith on notice. As her government and her caucus crumble around her, as her support falls further and further, we are here to let her know that Albertans believe in Canada.
The Better Together tour will see NDP members meeting with Albertans in a number of communities with a focus on pushing back against separatist sentiments and consideration of what being part of a strong Canada looks like. Naheed Nenshi, by the way, one of the new MLAs sworn in on Monday. Jim, how do you think this NDP initiative should be viewed as a counter to the Premier's Alberta Next town halls? What will Better Together need to accomplish to be considered any sort of success?
Well, he's going to have a lot of a challenge here because it's really difficult to compete with the Premier holding a almost daily conferences here so that the public can get exposure to it. She has the backing of the government, the funding from the government, and in order to compete with that, it's going to be really, really difficult. To be successful, they have to deal with some of the contentious issues that are brought up by the committee, by the panel, and deal with it right the next day so that it's hot off the presses so that they can see themselves as the opposition. And there's going to be some issues that are going to hit the fan. And when they do, they've got to jump on them right away in order to get media coverage, social media coverage, whatever it takes in order for them to get their message across.
So, Duane, how much of an opportunity is this for Naheed Nenshi to get some face time with Albertans now that he's officially a member of the legislature and official leader of the opposition, and especially where narrative around the issue of separation is concerned?
I think it is an opportunity, and I wonder if he had read Lisa Young's Substack from a couple of weeks ago that was recommending this approach for the NDP. But I agree with Jim. It's going to be tough for them to get traction. The Premier is setting the agenda here. She's got the full weight of government behind her. She's got more than just UCP caucus members on this panel, unlike the NDP roadshow. And I think the role that the NDP is going to be playing here is going to be commentary on what happens at each of the town halls across the province. It's very tough for opposition parties to break through here.
Jim, it's been more than a year since Naheed Nenshi became NDP leader. Now that he's finally an MLA, how much pressure will there be to produce results and make an impact as official opposition leader?
Yeah, he's already had some feedback that was not particularly positive from the party itself. He's ex-members of the party have been a little bit critical that he's sort of been an absentee landlord here for the last little while. Everybody knows that we don't sit for very long in the legislature, so he doesn't really get much of a chance to make his voice heard there. By delaying the by-election, he's kind of been removed from the scene for a lot. He's had a little bit more of a profile now, and the summer, circuit he's trying to get involved with. So this may be just a really, really crucial aspect to him because there's not all that much time left before we have the next provincial election as well in 2027.
We heard from Edmonton City Councillor Michael Jans off the top tonight on the contentious issue of infill policy and how it dominated right into the summer break. Duane, how different a discussion do you think this might be were it not an election year for municipalities?
It's always a contentious issue, but it's going to be heightened because it's an election year. And that's why I think the councillor spent an inordinate time calling out Cartmel for not being there because Cartmel not only missed the vote, but is running for mayor. So it is going to be, zoning's always contentious. People want more housing, just not in their neighborhood. So that's the challenge that they've got. And we're already seeing zoning issues playing a role in the municipal election here in Calgary.
Jim, what do you think might come of dialogue and dissension around this infill issue extending into the summer break and some councillors choosing not to participate? Could this be something that catches the attention of the provincial government as it exerts more control over the actions of municipalities?
Absolutely. It's almost amazing that the government hasn't already stepped in and stepped up in order to take this issue over because they have in so many other ways. When you look at the Municipal Affairs Act and things that they just seem to in their DNA to take control of all aspects. And this really hits, as Duane has mentioned, people personally. when something happens in your neighborhood, it suddenly is a cause célèbre. It really makes a difference, and every community across the province is trying to deal with these issues of cheaper services, not expansion. Keep it within the framework of the existing structure that's there, and save some money by doing that. But everybody objects to having a multiplex beside you after it's been in private dwellings, and that's the top issue, and it's going to remain so, I think, for the near future.
Yeah, big one. The election's coming. All right, one more topic. That is on the issue of trade. After U.S. President Donald Trump threatened 35% tariffs on Canada, set to begin August 1st. Here's what the PM had to say on arriving at Parliament Hill this morning for an urgent meeting of his cabinet.
I expect that the discussions will intensify between now and the end of the month, and we'll be working hard on that. At the same time, we need to recognize that the commercial landscape globally has changed.
Mark Carney has now set the August 1st date as the deadline for a new deal, and they will continue to focus on what Canada can most control. So, Duane, it's being suggested the PM is lowering expectations for what Canadians can expect. What does such messaging say to you about the state of talks with the Trump administration?
Who really knows that? And this is the problem, because we've got rotating deadlines, we've got tariffs on, we've got tariffs off, and we have the Americans are trying to negotiate or dictate trade terms with every country in the world. And just to put this in context, there are more people working for the Canadian government on Canada-U.S. trade than the entire U.S. Trade Representative Office in Washington that is trying to negotiate deals with every country in the world. And you've got a president who just wakes up one morning and says something and picks a number out of his hat. So I don't know how you can draft up a strategy for dealing with this, with rotating targets, rotating rationales, rotating deadlines.
Jim, considering that chaos, if it is that Canada or any other country is unable to land a tariff-free deal with the U.S., and that's kind of what the PM was suggesting to reporters this morning, where might that leave Mark Carney in the eyes of Canadians, especially where Alberta is concerned?
Well, it's not going to be positive for him, but I think, as we've seen, that the irrational approach by Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump has 17 intelligence services that he controls, and they report to him daily. And yesterday he announced that he finally realized that Vladimir Putin was working him and manipulating him. And he realized that because he watched Fox News and saw that he was still bombing the Ukraine. So this is not a intelligent, predictable leader. He can go off on any direction that we've seen this. Brazil, 50% tax on Brazil, tariffs on Brazil because he doesn't like their approaches to Bolsonaro when he's, the former leader. It's just totally irrational, and it's kind of ironic that we try to put rationality to it when there really is no rational approach to Donald Trump.
Duane, how do you see the state of these talks playing now into the Team Canada dynamic, with Mark Carney set to reopen dialogue with the premiers next week?
Well, you're already seeing some challenges. So, Doug Ford is already talking about ratcheting up retaliation, and Danielle Smith is warning against any retaliation, echoing what Trump put in his Truth Social letter that was sent to Carney, that they will raise the tariff rate if Canada retaliates. So in other words, we have to accept 35%, and if we respond, we will make it worse, if you are to believe that. So there is going to be challenges that Carney has within his own cabinet on this issue, and especially amongst the premiers. And we've seen that internal battle amongst the premiers already throughout the second term of Trump.
Jim, should Canadians be expecting signs of a plan B from the Carney government if talks on a trade deal with the U.S. fail to produce results?
Yeah, multiple plan Bs is probably the approach they'll have to take, because, Trump may put it in one day and take it out the next. He may threaten it. This is his negotiation skills, apparently, and it's unpredictable. Eventually, maybe after the midterm elections, he's going to see that his position is not very popular with people who are paying extra in the United States, because that's the taxpayers are the ones in the States that are paying for all these tariffs. And at that point, he may completely do a turnaround and have a complete change. And how do you predict that? How do you plan for it? And we've seen industry leaving things undone because they really can't focus on, well, where's the future here? Nobody knows where the prices will be, where the place. It's just complete chaos. And maybe that's his strategy: is keep everybody on edge and keep the chaos going.
Indeed. All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you both for this.
Okay,
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Duane. Take care.